Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Sabrent Rocket 32GB DDR4 memory module. Now this retails for a little over $165 US. I'll include a link in the description, and in full disclosure, this was furnished to me by the manufacturer for review purposes. Now, if you don't need 32 gigabytes, Sabrent does make an 8 and 16 gigabyte module as well. They're priced roughly around a little over $40 US and a little over 70 for the latter. So I think Sabrent has hit the price points correctly. It's really just a matter of now, did they hit the performance where they needed to? And I'm not really worried about that, because if you follow my channel and if you know anything about Sabrent, then you know that not only are they a good manufacturer, and that's not just in my opinion, but a fact, but in addition to that, they like to push the envelope, which means while it's great to have a new player in the game, it's more important to have one that actually wants to change the game. And Sabrent tends to do that. I mean, when you look at the NVMe market, they were the first to launch 8 terabyte. They were the first now to launch a Thunderbolt dock that I think is best in class, that incorporates dual NVMe drives. So they're really doing a lot. And I can't say that about anyone else in their business. So now entering into the RAM game, the memory business, I think that's a good thing. It's not, again, just about competition, but about improving our expectations. So generally, the manufacturer I would turn to in most cases is Crucial. Again, this is a CL22 module, but what's unique about what Sabrent did here is that they essentially, you might think this is a sticker that is covering the entire module, but it is actually a copper heatsink. And you can actually see the copper, trying to bring it into focus, but you should see it right now. So very cool that they did that. And from a performance standpoint, that should help with heat dissipation, obviously. But we're going to see how it performs. Now, before you jump to install RAM, or I should say even buy RAM, especially if you're watching this video, keep in mind that you have to make sure your laptop can actually take said RAM. And that really is going to be on a case-by-case basis. Some machines, all of the RAM is soldered to the board and is not user upgradable. Then you have machines like this where half of the RAM is soldered. So total of 16 for the Asus G15, one of the most popular machines of the pandemic, if you will. But the RAM was one of, in my opinion, the biggest issues with this, because essentially if I drop a 32 gig DIMM in here, I'll get it up to 40 gigs, but I can't, the dual channel element, that aspect has always been in dispute. And of course, in a perfect world, you want dual channel, you want two modules. You do not want to be in this sort of configuration. And this is really a money grab, in my opinion, what Asus did here. Still a phenomenal machine. I recommend it still to this day, which is amazing. But would I prefer to be putting both of these 32 gig modules into here? Of course. Can I do that in other machines? Yes. But this is one of those partial solder jobs that's just in between being totally screwed, if you will. So it still is beneficial for some applications, and that's why I will upgrade with this 32 gig DIMM into this machine. And, this right now just has the standard stock RAM that came with it, which is fine. I did upgrade it in the past, but I ended up dropping it back down. And, it's really a matter of whether you need it. Now, of course, not everyone needs this sort of upgrade. It's really a matter of what sort of tasks you're going to undertake. But again, having another manufacturer, one that is reliable, that to me is the important part. And, Sabrent continues to just improve upon the spaces that I traditionally have expectations from them on. So to now have them in this mix is beneficial. And, more RAM is coming. It's not just something I'm speculating on. We are going to see, more offerings from them. I'm sure of it, because they don't step into any space without trying to change it. And while, SO-DIMMs like this are great for, for example, specifically not just laptops, but NUCs, things of that nature. This is still, it's a wide net, but this is not going to be, for gamers. I mean, it's fine for a gaming laptop, but it's so I shouldn't say it's not for gamers, but bumping up to this sort of RAM isn't something a gamer needs. Let me put it that way. The majority of gamers are going to be satisfied at the 16 gigs in here. Of course, if you stepped up to a higher priced G15, that would gain you access to more RAM. They'd be giving you 32 gigs. But again, you'd be running into the same half solder job where 16 gigs of the RAM is soldered to the board, and then you have a slot. So I am really not a fan of what Asus did here. I don't think that it's a problem for the majority of users, but that is really going to be in large part decided by how much RAM upgradability matters to you. I would argue the majority of users, not just gamers, will be satisfied with 16 gigs. But for me, for video editing, photo editing, and of course Chrome, who could leave that out, this is just, maxing out the RAM on this machine is ideal for me. So again, it's really a matter of personal expectations, and in my opinion, more is more here. It's not always more, but in this case, it is. And, since dropping back down to the 16 gigs of RAM as opposed to the 40, I mean, I did see a performance drop. So for everyone who argued, dropping a 32 gig stick in here isn't worthwhile, there are instances where, of course, the loss of dual channel support is not going to be beneficial. I mean, almost in basically every instance. However, I have enough of a justification, and also dual channel is still getting reported pretty much all the way through, oddly enough. So that's one of those things where people tend to have like differing answers, which surprises me every time. Here I'm doing a pry job, and I forgot I have not unscrewed the screws I revealed. So thankfully I did remember. And, I'm curious how many of you do upgrade the RAM in your machines, or essentially, do you try to just get what you need out of the gate, and then over time, of course, you are more likely to just end up replacing your machine. Now, I personally believe in having a machine that you can upgrade that RAM. I think that's fundamental. I don't think any of us should be in a position where we can't do that. It's just one of those things, because once we start getting into that gray space and we are not able to upgrade machines, there's just no turning back. And I just feel like that's counterintuitive to the entire PC industry. But that's just me. Some people prefer never to open a machine, and I'm not saying that it's always fun, but I think having the ability, if you never want to do it, you don't have to do it. But if you want to, you have that luxury. Now, I'm making this look harder than it is, and that tends to be the case. It seems like I still have one screw that's catching. I'm not sure which. It might be the center screw. I thought that already came out. Let's go ahead and get this off. And by the way, if you were wondering what the story is with the design on my G15, it is a skin. It is not the actual machine, for anyone that was wondering. So that is answered now. I didn't want anyone trying to figure out what's going on with the skin on this machine. But the G15 has served me well. It's really surprising that it is, still for sale. And I say that because it's just one of those things where historically, most laptops, I don't feel like they last this long. And then in addition to that, hold their price. I mean, yes, the gaming business has held a lot of things together, but the fact that this is at 18, over 1800 still is just an amazing feat. I can't think of any laptop that lasted this long with pricing, but also that's in large part due to the fact that this had all completely brand new components out of the gate. It had a brand new 165 hertz QHD display. It had, of course, a brand new processor, the Ryzen chip, I'm pretty sure the first product it launched in. And you can see I'm in need of some servicing here. We got a little dust buildup. It has been a while since I've cracked this open. And then in addition to that, you know, the 3070 that's on there, arguably possibly the most desirable part for a lot of people. I mean, that is the intangible, if you will. So let me just put that down. Don't want to lose any of my screws here. I've got a couple over here. I'm not going to lose them. But remember, these screws have different lengths, and I'm trying to bring that into focus. And if you screw that length up, you potentially will damage the chassis. I made that mistake. So take that piece of advice and don't screw around with this. So one RAM slot, as I mentioned. We can only upgrade a single, and it's easy to do, folks. I mean, this is not a complicated process. I did make opening this look like it was science, rocket science, but I assure you it is not. So pop this off. Now the RAM that they used is good RAM. It's Samsung RAM, and you know, of the many manufacturers you want to see in a machine like this, Sammy is always a good sign. But again, 16 gigs for gaming, I think in most cases perfectly fine. But if, like me, you're doing content creation, you need some headroom. You can get away with 16. It's not ideal. And that's where this comes into play. And by the way, I didn't mention that I dig their packaging, but I do. And that's not a new one, because Sabrent, generally, their packaging is usually excellent, even from a build quality perspective. If you know them, well, then you already know that they are adamant about their packaging. So let's go ahead and drop this in. We're going to see. I do not anticipate any operation issues, and this will eventually migrate out of here into another laptop. I mean, I'm reviewing enough of them just to see what I can eke out of these new systems that are coming in with the 12th gen processors, of course, and the revamped GPUs. That's going to be interesting. They're coming, you know that already, and I anticipate to have a lot of them. So to see how they'll run with 64 gigs of RAM is always intriguing, especially, again, from a content creation standpoint. Less so from a gaming standpoint. I cannot think of an instance where you really need 64 gigs. And while I'm in here, I'm going to pull this guy out of here too. Now, I have the Hynix. You know, it's always nice to be able to expand your storage, and this isn't, you know, an ad for Sabrent NVMEs or, of course, their RAM. Although, you know, some people may think it reads like as such, but you know, their NVMe drives, I've covered a lot of them, and you know, I generally don't have any issues, no problems. Things just work. And again, when it comes to storage capacity and pricing, they are pretty tough to beat. That Thunderbolt 3 dock with the built-in NVMEs that I mentioned earlier in this video, that is right now one of my favorite devices. And if you're interested in it, stay tuned, because I will be doing a follow-up on it. And that's because it's excellent. And it's excellent for a variety of reasons I'm not going to get into right now. But my use case for it is just pretty much infinite with what I do, both professionally and privately. So I really, really like that machine. And, you know, unfortunately, it's not something I can use with this, which is really terrible. I wish that I could. It would be ideal. That thing is ideal for just about everything. I mean, it has redefined the dock for me. So one of the things, I wish this laptop had Thunderbolt. Of course, it didn't. And, you know, that's just, what can I do about it? Now, a little bit of cleanup. I have several air guns in-house. If you follow my channel, you've seen them. Some have frustrated you. Others have made you happy. Well, I don't know. That sounds kind of odd. But I'm just going to clean this up right now. Just a little bit. Okay. All right. I'm sure you all enjoyed that. Now we are in business. I feel good about closing this thing up. And, really, again, how much RAM you need is going to be decided by what you're doing. I don't recommend 64 gigs for, the average user. Again, 16 is solid. For some of you, 8 is enough. There's a reason that Sabrent makes that 8 gig kit because 8 gigs is still one of the most produced and commonly used modules out there. And again, I think things are only going to get better, but we'll see how this ends up benchmarking. I'm going to get this closed up right now. And for those of you wondering, I think I mentioned this earlier, which RAM I will be directly pitting this against. It is going to be the Crucial with the exact same specifications. So, I mean, that's just the logical competing product. And it's also what I've been using in this specific machine, as well as in others. Right now, I have 2 other laptops running 64 gigs of Crucial RAM, and it does exactly what it's supposed to. I'm expecting Sabrent to be, right there, if not even possibly eke out more performance. We can always hope, right? Whether that's realistic, I will find out. But that pretty much rounds things out. I'm just going to finish closing this up, and then we're going to make sure that everything boots, and that's where I'm going to leave you. I will save benchmarking for the full review, so you got a first look as well as a physical install, which is not too bad. And again, the G15 is still a good machine and a good example of why you need to be careful when you go to upgrade RAM. You have to make sure of what you need for not just your own use case, but what your laptop supports. And by the way, if any of you have questions about what RAM you need or trying to figure out if your laptop does have soldered RAM, feel free to post that in the comments. I'll try to leave some links for software that can help you self-diagnose upgradability. But again, general rule of thumb, and it's not bulletproof, if you have an Ultrabook of any kind, you most likely have soldered RAM that is not upgradable. If you follow my channel, you're going to always hear from me directly which machines I'm covering have soldered RAM and which do not. So you'll always know with me whether or not you will be able to potentially upgrade. And most reviewers will mention that. That's kind of, incredibly basic. But anything very thin, very light, that is going to be one of those situations where manufacturers will always tend to solder. When it comes to gaming laptops, workstations, that's where the majority will have 2 slots for user upgradability, and generally they'll just come pre-installed in dual channel because, well, that's just the best for performance, and no manufacturer is trying to sell you a machine that isn't going to be ideal for performance. Now, I've got everything screwed back in. Let's just make sure we're in business. It looks like I forgot about my little rubber feet, but I still have them, even though they're sticking to my arm. Bringing some other goodies with them. Hopefully I just clean them up. Let's go ahead and see, just make sure that this boots, which I have full confidence that it will. Let's go ahead and see right now. And we're in business. So let me just, this got dusty and I don't even know how. It was just cleaned up, but just give it a blow. Bear with me here, folks. All right, and we're good. And everything is good to go here. So that's the good news. As you can see, we've booted. All is well. And that's really what I wanted to see here, is that we're ready to go, and I'll be able to test this out. And then, that pretty much covers the entire premise of today's video, which was just a first look, get it in there, see that it's working, which it is, And now I will be off to actually start using it and seeing if there are any perceivable differences. And then, of course, running through benchmarking software to get the entire synthetic story, not just day-to-day user experience, and you'll get a follow-up. Interested to see your questions and comments and whether or not you're happy, like myself, that not only, again, do we have more competition, but from a company that should change the competition. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button, and as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.